Hammer time.
8:45, welcome back. BT here on this Friday. There you see him in boxes. Thor Cow on location in Surrey, and comedy at the forefront. Will Ferrell, Kevin Hart. I'm thinking this is a recipe for comedy success. Let's talk about Get Hard.
Yeah, you would hope so. On paper, it looks great. So Will Ferrell plays a white-collar criminal sentenced to prison, and he enlists the help of Kevin Hart to get him essentially prepped for life in the big house. Take a look.
James King.
Yes?
You're under arrest for fraud and embezzlement.
I have faith that the justice system will exonerate me.
I sentence you to 10 years in a maximum security prison.
Did he say 10 years? It's not as bad as I've heard, is it?
Hell yeah, it's bad.
Teach me how to survive in prison the way you did.
Tell me how you know.
Okay, Thor, so two comedy powerhouses here, but how far do they push the boundaries on the raunch factor in this movie?
Statistically, you definitely...
Well, really far. Not so much with the visual gags, but the writing, and it was downright atrocious and offensive, even for me. And this movie, on paper, you know, you'd think it would be great with the teaming up of Ferrell and Hart, but it was full of homophobic jokes, misogynistic material, racist jokes, and the gags, it just seemed like they were really poorly thought out. This, to me, represents like a 2-minute SNL skit. Doesn't justify an entire narrative of a movie or anything like that. And they were, I know it's about him going to prison, but there were so many jokes about prison sex. It got, frankly, just downright embarrassing. Even the audience, when I watched this movie, they just weren't feeling the comedy in it. So, and the other thing too is that there were a lot of scenes where you just got thrust into it midway through. So that to me signaled some real problems in the editing department. So this movie was one big steaming pile of you know what, if I can be blatantly honest here.
Any potential for the future with this pairing? I mean, you have Will Ferrell, Kevin Hart, great crossover appeal with the audiences that follow them. Do you think we'll see them in a movie together again, or is this pretty much it?
It's really hard to say because they didn't even really have great chemistry, and Kevin Hart had to play essentially the straight man, pretending to be a thug, but he's meanwhile this sort of domesticated family man. Will Ferrell was very funny, I'll give him that. He had a couple of scenes, but the funny stuff I'd already seen in the trailers. So the two of them together, unfortunately, they didn't work that well together. So this was a complete dud, despite a couple of laughs. It was totally forgettable.
How many hammers?
1 out of 5.
Ooh, for these two. Okay, switching gears completely. This genre, for the horror movie genre, people love their scare movies. Tell us about It Follows.
Very interesting flick here, and it's a throwback to the 70s and 80s psychological horror movies that John Carpenter, David Cronenberg, guys like that did. Micah Monroe, who was a scene stealer in last year's cult hit The Guest with Dan Stevens from Downton Abbey, she stars in this one as a girl who has a strange sexual encounter, and then after that she's getting stalked by all these nightmarish visions, and people try to track her down. So it's very mysterious. She's great in the film. It's a very minimalist movie, and in a genre that you know, relies a lot on jump scares and found footage format and things like that. It was a very refreshing shot in the arm, I think. The climax didn't quite live up to the build-up for me, but if you like that psychological, creeping dread sort of horror flick, this one might be right up your alley.
Hammers will you drop for It Follows?
I will go with a respectable 3 out of 5 for It Follows.
Okay, 1 and 3 at the box office. Thor, thanks so much, buddy. I know you've been busy this morning.